lecture with us. Before I start, I would just like to have a quick recap of what we saw yesterday on the first day of our special training program, a special course on banking for the students of Manipur University. Our director sahib introduced the subject yesterday. He gave an overview of Indian financial system. He also talked about what are the different components, which was followed by Mr. Mehdi's discussions on RBI. RBI being at the center stage of our financial system, and it is in fact the pivot. Having seen the role and function of RBI, now we come to the second stage. In fact, I will put a bit in historical perspective, then go ahead with my proper presentation. You know that RBI was set up in 1935, and our country was still not independent. RBI was loaded with the role of overseeing the economy from financial and from banking point of view. And the colonial government had their other priorities. Gradually, when we moved in the direction of autonomy, and finally it culminated in independence in 1947, then perhaps our priorities also got more defined. And when the priorities got defined, the RBI, which was at the center, was asked to offload some of its roles, because it was felt that we require specialized institutions to take care of those priorities of ours. What I mean by priorities, first of all, is our agriculture and rural development, and the financing going to this sector. So that is our priority. Our priority is housing. Our priority is international trade, where at the time of independence also we had a deficit, and still we continue to have deficit. So naturally, export promotion is one of the priorities for us. Our priorities are also a small industry. What I mean by a small industry, not going by definition, but what we know as MSMEs. So financing to this sector also, that is also our priority. So in this background, RBI over a period of time was asked to offload its burden and have separate institution. And thus, we saw the genesis of NABARD, we saw the genesis of SIDBI, we saw coming up of Exim Bank, we saw coming up of National Housing Bank. I mean, our financial system, because initially the entire system was designed in such a way that short-term financial requirement will be taken care of by commercial banks, and long-term by a specialized institution, or what we know as investment institutions, like we had IFCI or ICICI, and even later on IDBI also. So this is how it was all functioning. And in this scenario, we start our discussions proper after having seen the role of regulator, that those institutions which have branched off, which were traditionally with RBI, but which have branched off and become a specialized institution. And in this session, in this short session of 1 hour, we will concentrate ourselves. We will just focus on 4 of the institutions: NABARD, Exim, SIDB, Exim Bank, and NHB. And I have prepared a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that I will be soon. I will be discussing first about SIDB, then about NHB and Exim Bank, and last I will be discussing about NABARD. The reason being, as you must have seen in my CV that was being shown on the screen a while back, that I have put in 35 years of service in NABARD as officers in different capacities in different places all over India. And after putting in that much of service, then after retirement, I have joined as faculty member to this institution. So I'll be discussing about NABARD at last. That is one reason, because I hail from NABARD. Second reason is that, to my mind, NABARD is among the development financial institutions, these 4 development financial institutions which I just named. I find NABARD to be the most important ones. One, because of its size among all these 4 institutions, and second, because it is catering to almost 70% of our country. The financial, the promotional, the rural development needs of our country. That is why I have put it at last. In fact, for NABARD, maybe one full session would have been required. But anyway, it is just introductory. So I will be discussing about that last. And you may reserve all your questions about NABARD, because you may be NABARD may be one organization that maybe those of you who are in Imphal, or those of you who are maybe even in interior area, you must have come across NABARD. I mean, I just to start the things with an anecdote. When we joined, I mean, all these institutions that I talked about, they all, I put the things in perspective and said that these all stem from RBI, and accordingly, NABARD also came out, branched off from RBI. And when we joined way back in 1984, it was, of course, set up in 1982, and I joined in 1984. So at that point of time, we would say, the people will ask, where are you working? And we'll say that I'm working in NABARD. What is that NABARD? And I will have to say, I mean, it has, do you know RBI? It has branched off from RBI. And now, 35 years down the line, I go to a rural area, and if I have to tell RBI, then maybe some of people may not be aware, but NABARD, almost everyone is aware. So maybe you also may be having some interface with NABARD. You may be having some maybe doubts about NABARD, or maybe having some questions about NABARD that you can reserve. You can put in your chat. So, friends, so I will start now with the PowerPoint presentation. I will request the admin to allow me to share the screen. And
it's done.
Yeah. So, friends, sorry, just a moment. kindly give me a few minutes. So, friend, uh, we'll be discussing about the structure of financial system, and we'll be talking about four of these institutions. As the study may have seen and may have concluded that our financial system comprised of the regulators like RBI and other regulators like stock exchanges are being regulated by SEBI, insurance companies are being regulated by IRDA. So regulators at the top. Then we have banks, FIs, and NBFCs, which are mostly catering to the short-term credit requirements of short-term credit requirement of the individuals and corporates like financial banks and NBFCs. We have financial institutions taking care of the long-term credit requirement. Then we have specialized institutions looking after other uh, financial services like insurance or pension or mutual fund. And finally, what we call presently the development financial institutions. So these were basically, originally, they were all financial institutions looking after the long-term or the investment credit need of the borrowers. In course of time, it was realized that these agencies are not only financing, but they are also having other roles, and that is why they are called development financial institutions. And these four development financial institutions that we are discussing, I mean, many more are there, but we are talking about only these four, are, as I discussed earlier, NABARD, SIDBI, Exim Bank, and National Housing Bank. Now, let us see the definition. What is a development financial institution? So, development financial institution can be defined as a specialized institutions set up primarily to provide development project finance, especially in developing countries. Like in India, earlier we had industrial fund, IFCI, ICICI. Of course, I mean that is not beyond the scope of this session. But later on, we have seen that SIDBI basically it branched out of IDBI, and now IDBI itself has been converted into a bank. So what actually started, it was in RBI, then 64, it was made a separate institution, then SIDBI came into being, and the original institution that itself has now been converted into a bank. So I mean, that is a different thing altogether. But in developing countries, we are aware that we require institutions which will cater to the need of project finance. And in traditionally in developing economies, these development banks or these financial institutions are usually owned by government. Like in case of India also, NABARD is initially when it was formed, it was 50% 50% government of India and 50% RBI, but now it is almost 100% owned by government of India. And these institutions also source their resources from international agencies. Like in case of NABARD, World Bank, IDA, all those loans which are given to government of India are ultimately routed to NABARD. NABARD utilizes it for the purposes of like NABARD CP1. Different project used to be. So these are some of the things. So we start our discussions with SIDBI, and SIDBI was set up on 2nd of April 1990 by an act of parliament. These all of you know, as I told, that these are all owned by government in the previous slide. So it was set up on 2nd April 1990, and I remember, I mean, just from my experience, I can tell. I was posted in Patna at that point time of time, and it used to be IDBI. IDBI means Industrial Development Bank of India, and NABARD was there for rural development. And in the meantime, the SIDBI came into being, and at that point of time, there was some confusion. I mean, to whom SIDBI will finance? Because NABARD has a role of not only, I told it's not only agriculture, but also rural development. Rural development means off-farm also, not only farm sector, but off-farm sector also, or non-farm sector also. And MSME is nothing but non-farm. So there was a kind of tussle. I mean, who will SIDBI finance and who will NABARD finance? And then came some clarification that this is the area where NABARD will be financing, and this is the area where SIDBI will be financing, because more or less their client type will be similar. And it was separated from IDBI. The office of IDBI, which was located in Patna, in Patna, in Maurya Hotel Complex, there only one part of it that was divided and made into SIDBI. These are all interesting anecdotes just I wanted to share, being a practical banker. Having seen that history happen in front of me. Now, nobody talks about, I don't think, unless you specifically search for this thing, you will get this information that earlier it was RBI, and RBI office only was bifurcated. One portion, one table was given to NABARD, other table was to RBI. And some of the tables still had that ACD stamping, means Agriculture Trade Department, which was a department of RBI. So likewise, SIDBI, it branched off from IDBI. But gradually, I mean, normally because RBI was traditionally in Bombay, so all the other institutions, they were all headquartered in Bombay. Likewise, NABARD was also headquartered in Bombay. There were, of course, I mean, when I joined, I myself raised this question: why should its headquarters be in Bombay? It should be elsewhere. But it continues to be. But SIDBI, it was headquartered in Lucknow. Still, it has its head office in Lucknow. And SIDBI is intended to be a principal financial institution for developing and financing micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. So it provides loan for a small business and industry. I mean, of course, we have a separate discussion. You have a separate module for that on MSME, and then we'll be discussing in detail about what medium industries, what are small industries, what the micro industries, and what the finances to these industries mean. And this SIDBI basically is meant for that, meant for financing of those institutions. The vision and mission of any institution, that uh, tells you about the institution, what it does, what its role is, how it is functioning, what it is supposed to function as. And all the institutions, one thing I also need to tell, there is a difference between other banking institution or simple financing institution and these development finance institutions. It is not merely financing. None of these four that I'm discussing, none of these are simple financing. They also have other roles. They have developmental role, they have promotional role, they have policy advocacy role. So in a kind, they combine so many roles. They act as a hand of government, central government, to develop these sectors. So the vision of SIDBI is to emerge as a single window for meeting the financial and developmental needs of MSME sector to make it strong, vibrant, and globally competitive. And to position SIDBI as brand as a preferred customer-friendly institution and for enhancement of shareholders' wealth. Its mission is to facilitate and strengthen credit flow to MSME and address the financial and developmental gap in MSME ecosystem. So mission, it tells about, because credit is one role, of course, this financing is a very important role, but other roles are also there. So to fill up, to address the gaps which are existing in MSME ecosystem, means not only financing, other roles also you have to play so that financing takes place, because we need to address also the demand side, not merely supply side. And this provision of finance is a supply side element, but also we need to be in a position to create demand. And this we do through addressing the gap in the ecosystem that exists. That will be done. That is what SIDBI intends to do. So SIDBI is basically for MSME. Its roles are promotional. It has to promote the MSME industries. It has to finance the MSME industry, and it has to develop the MSME industry. Since it's a kind of single window, all the developmental institutions, that's why they are called developmental institutions. Because side by side with it, they need to coordinate with other institutions which are engaged in similar function, so that there is a convergence. Because so many institutions, like for example, as far as MSMEs are concerned, there are institutions like Khadi and Village Industries Board, KVIC, Khadi and Village Industries Commission. Likewise, Department of Industry. So they all are playing some kind of developmental role, some kind of promotional role. But there is a need to have a kind of convergence. And that coordination is a very important part, and all these developmental finance institutions, DFI, are playing that role. Now, let us see a bit of what is the structure of this segment. It's just for academic interest. It has got a board at the top of it. That is the main policy making body that lays down the policy for the bank. And the board consists of a chairman, or what is known as chairman cum MD, CMD, and there are two DMDs which are working there. CMD is Mr. Muhammad Mustafa, who is the chairman, and its board of directors consists of members from DFS, Ministry of MSME, banks and financial institutions like SBI, NABARD, and there are some co-opted directors. So board consists of those people. And its key functionaries are CMD, Mr. Mustafa, and a DMD is there, and other officials both at known as GMs at head office level in Lucknow and other offices. It has got head office at Lucknow and two major offices, one at Mumbai and other at Delhi. And it has 10 hours and branch offices in almost every state. So through that network, it is operating. It has extended the financial loan to the tune of 5.40 lakh crore, 540 lakh crore to MSME sector, and also provided equity and quasi-equity support to the tune of 14,000 crores. Its balance sheet size, as on, of course, on 31st, the position of 31st March 2020, I've not been able to access. So what I'm giving here is the financial of as on 31st March 2019, last year, and the balance sheet size you can see is 1,36,230 crores, and it made a net profit last year, 1952 crores. Its CRAR is 27.11, and PCAR or provision coverage ratio is 87%. So it has been making a profit for both the years. It had made a profit of 1,120 crores in 17 and 1,429 crores in 2018. And its balance sheet size has also been increasing very fast from around 70,000 crores, 68,000 crores in 2017 to 95,000 crores in 2018, and now in 2019 it is 1,36,000. So this is about CDB. Now we come to the next institution, that is Exim Bank. So, so Exim Bank was set up in 1982 by an act of parliament. All the three institutions set up by the act of parliament, and it started operations in March 1982. Exim Bank is headquartered at Mumbai, and its objectives are providing financial assistance to exporters and importers, as the name clearly indicates, export-import bank. And idea is, as I told you, that we have a trade deficit, so naturally we need to step it up, and this is our institution. This is through financing we can achieve that goal. It functions as a principal financial institution for coordinating the working of institutions engaged in financing exports and import of goods and services. Like I told you, that not only financing, but also they have got a role of coordination because they are development financial institutions. And ultimately, its objective is to promote countries' international trade. So its board consists of one MD and two DMDs, who are also the key functionaries. It has got 4 directors, total 12 directors nominated by Government of India, apart from directors from RBI, ECGC, and IDBI. 5 central government officials, 3 from commercial banks, and 4 from professional. 4 are the professionals which have got expertise in export and import financing. You will be surprised to know that these institutions, I mean, all these institutions, because naturally their role will be limited. It will not be like I told about NABARD, which covers around 70% of our country, because rural area and agriculture, that is the mainstream. Likewise, export import, that may have some, it will have a kind of some focus, some localized focus, and that is why we have limited number of offices and limited number of products. So the products which Export Import Bank had for promotion of international trade is one is buyer's credit. Buyer's credit means the credit to borrowers in the other countries, who are buying goods from India to promote export. So that is buyer's credit, then corporate banking, then lines of credit, different lines of credit are there. Then overseas investment and project export. Means they are giving lines of credit. They are more into the project finance, the project that is taking place. Particularly, a number of projects are there in African countries, in a country like Mauritius, Somalia, Sudan, all these countries, so many projects are there. So basically, through these products, the idea is that foreign exchange earning of the country is increased. Then, apart from financial products, they also provide financial services. One service is market advisory. Market advisory services is providing. Then research and analysis also it is doing, and export advisory service. So these are the 3 services that we have. And finally, we come to the National Housing Bank. National Housing Bank, once again, of course, the need of housing is behemoth. But then, housing is one sector where so many players are there. Now, in maybe if you are in villages, if you have interaction with villages, you must have seen that Prime is PMAY, Prime Minister Awas Yojana. Even state government may be having some program. I don't know. Even Assam government of Assam is also having a program for housing, and likewise, number of housing finance institutions they have come up. So NHB, although it has a very important, very crucial role, but basically housing finance is a multidisciplinary approach. Even NABARD is also financing housing in the rural area. I mean, financing means giving refinance, because all these institutions they have a major role. I mean, they were all intended, because as you know, RBI was basically lender of last resort. They were bankers' bank, so they were financing to bank, or what is known as refinance. So instead of directly giving finance to individuals or the user, they were routing it through some agency, some intermediary, maybe banks also, like when NABARD was doing. Similarly, NHB was also doing the same thing. SIDBI was also into refinancing. So NHB has been doing it, but at the same time, there are so many institutions housing finance institutions which have come into being. So this National Housing Bank, the origin of this bank is, again, it was thought that we should have a separate organization because housing being an important sector. So during 7th 5-year plan, a subgroup was formed on housing finance, just to take care of what should be uh, done, what recommendations could be made, and accordingly that group had made certain recommendations. And these recommendations were put up to by that secretary level committee to a special subgroup under the chairmanship of Sri Rangarajan, who was deputy later on, who was deputy governor. Later on, he went on to become the governor of RBI. And that group gave the recommendations, which recommended for setting up of a separate bank, separate institution for housing finance. And then NHB Act was passed in 1987, which led to setting up of a bank, NHB, National Housing Bank, which was set up on 9th July 1988 with headquarters at Delhi. So we have NHB headquartered at Delhi, Exim headquartered at Mumbai, and SIDBI headquartered at Lucknow. Its RO is in Bombay or Mumbai, and regional representatives. That one is regional office, that is Mumbai, and then regional representatives at Calcutta, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Ahmedabad. But a very unique thing about this organization, and when again from my experience, from my kind of anecdote is there, that when we were formed in 1982, and I was there in 1984. So later on, this NHB came up. So some of us, we wanted to go there, and some of us also went there into NHB. Then we were surprised. I mean, we were told that there is an organization where the CEO, he is also sitting outside. He is not sitting in a cabin, like the CEOs are used to putting up in a plush cabin. So he was sitting outside. Outside means there used to be a hall where he will sit. Even to date, this organization is very lean organization with only 127 staff. It is a national level institution, but only 127 staff. Even in Bangalore, I was posted in Bangalore, so only 2 persons they used to come. I mean, when our chairman and everybody will come, and then we built up our building there, and they would come that you give one corner to us for their office, because we are all sister concern, all of us having branched off from the same organization. So I mean, the idea was just to by way of diversion, that it is a very lean organization with only 127 staff. The vision of NHB is inclusive expansion and stability in housing finance sector. So idea is housing finance has been a very vibrant sector. I mean, you do or don't do anything, the construction activity will go, whether it is village area or town or metro, and there will be need for finance. But then what it aims it as inclusive expansion, means everybody should have a housing for all. What government talks about PMAY or Indra Awas, whatever we had down the line. So this is the vision of National Housing Bank, to have inclusive expansion and stability in housing. It's not. It should be. I mean, ups and downs in prices. Sometimes it will go up. It will become. The market will boom, and nobody can afford a housing. You can't afford a housing in Mumbai, whereas in some other places the units are built, no takers are there. So not that kind of thing. So this is what it is for. And then its mission is to harness and promote market potential to serve housing need of all, with focus on low and moderate income group. So everybody, whatever I am naming now, PMAY or Indra Awas, Yojana or whatever. So they were all uh, aimed at providing housing to the marginalized section of the society. And always the thrust of government has been to housing for all. Everybody should have housing. So this is what NHB is also aiming at. The objective of NHB is to harness and promote market potential to serve housing need of all with focus on low and moderate income. And the finance, like other DFIs, one is refinance, because already there is no dearth of institutions who are financing housing sector. So the liquidity problem of those institutions, it can be taken care of by NHB through the mode of refinance. And then in housing finance companies, it can have equity participation. So that way also it can provide support, financial support. Then again, like other development financial institutions, it has the role of coordination with other institutions which are engaged in housing finance. And finally, it has also, from 2000 onwards, it has also been mandated to do the registration of the housing finance companies. And now for 26 major cities, because housing finance, I talked about PMAY and other schemes which other institutions are also engaged in. Like SIDBI also has a role in financing housing sector. NABARD also has a role. But this is one organization, the NHB, which takes care of all the areas. I mean, it is the nodal agency for the housing finance. And its stress is also on major cities. So for 26 major cities, it is keeping a record of movement of prices of housing, or what is known as residex. And national residex is something that is accepted. So this is for housing, National Housing Bank. So now we come to the final part of my presentation, and this is about NABARD. And I will try to, in whatever time, some 15 minutes left to me, I'll be trying to cover as much part of NABARD as possible. This was again, it was thought that RBI being too overburdened with the role it had, monetary role, regulatory role. So it was thought that there should be some organization, or at least there should be some specialized organization which can look into the rural credit requirement. Rural credit was only one part, but RBI was also doing other things about rural financial institutions, and these roles were also supervisory roles, regulatory roles. RBI had agriculture credit department, a separate department for agriculture credit, which was basically catering to the short-term credit need of the country, and mostly through cooperative organization, rural cooperative organization. So that was agriculture credit department. Then the long-term credit requirement, that was being looked after by a corporation that was known as ARDC, Agriculture Refinance Development Corporation. And this ARDC was, in fact, looking after the long-term credit, or at that point of time, what was a very important thing was the project finance in agriculture. So it is something, I mean, later on when it became NABARD, so they combined agriculture credit department and ARDC, and thus in those offices only came up an organization known as NABARD. I will not go into the history because that will be I mean a very voluminous thing. Like so many committees were there, like graphic card, National committee. So many committees were there. They were successive committees. I mean, right from 1956, successive committees. They all talked about the importance of agriculture. Because nobody can simply ignore the importance of agriculture and the importance of agriculture financing, because all the menaces of money lender and farmers committing suicide and all. I mean, these were two big menace for the rural society to be ignored, and that is why successive committees they came up with this idea. And finally, in 1982, on 12th July, the NABARD was set up, and as I told, it was ACD and ARDC. They were put together, and this new organization came. And one RPCC, Rural Credit Planning Cell, that was in RBI, that was retained. I mean, to have one kind of organic link with NABARD, and it was re-christianed as RPCD, Rural Planning and Credit Department in RBI. So ARDC and ACD they combined, and those places itself was converted into NABARD. So maybe you go to those days. I mean, most of you may not have been born at that point of time. So you go to one office of NABARD, you will find that the table that bears the mark ACD. So all those inventories are in terms of ACD or ARDC. So those things became NABARD, and later on, of course, I mean, gradually it all developed, and then orchestration and all those things. Gradually, those data stock were also replaced, and now a new culture has developed. Of course, a lot of water has flown down the line. So this is how it was established in 1982, and the vision of this organization. I mean, this vision was not at that point of time. This I'm talking about right now. I mean, it has undergone changes time and again, so many times. But finally, as it stands today, is you will find on the website of NABARD. I will suggest to just take down the website address of NABARD is www.nabardnabard.org, and you will get so many details. I mean, anything about agriculture credit, anything about project financing, anything about agriculture scheme, all those details will be available there. So right now the vision will also be available there. The vision of NABARD is to become the developmental bank of nation for fostering rural prosperity. So NABARD is committed to rural prosperity. I mean, everybody should be prosperous in rural area. And the mission is to promote sustainable and equitable agriculture and rural development. That is the mission of NABARD. Through participative financial and non-financial intervention. So the keywords, each word speaks for itself. Rural development through participative, financial and non-financial. Participative means NABARD believes essentially in the kind of planning that is done at grassroots level. Means planning in a way by involving those for whom the plan is being prepared. So that is what we call as participative intervention. Like, for example, I can tell you watershed, Wadi, or Wadi out of Tribal Development Fund in tribal areas. I'm sure in Manipur also you may be having that program. So there, the planning is done by consulting all the stakeholders what they would like to happen there with the money that you are getting out of this fund. I'm just giving example. So this is what is called participative intervention, and this will not only be financial, but also this will be non-financial. means it has also the role of promotion. It has also the role of development, because in the earlier slide, initially, if you remember, I had told that these development financial institutions also source money from international agencies. Like, I can give you an example, uh, Swiss Development Corporation. So that is one corporation that gives money, some line of credit to NABARD, and the interest of that corpus, maybe something like 250, 300 crores. Interest, annual interest, that may come to around 8, 10 crore. That has to be spent towards promotional functions. And if you don't spend that, that money is taken away by those international agencies. So through that money, we have enough of, NABARD has enough of fund to do the CSR kind of thing. So that non-financial intervention can be done. It can finance an NGO. It can support some program by some CSR agency of some company, corporate, to do something meaningful in the rural areas by involving the people. NABARD also, its mission is to do it through innovation, and that is why there was a separate fund in NABARD known as RIF, Rural Innovation Fund, through which they have financed lot many innovation in rural areas. Lot many developments have taken place in Assam. Mr. Bharali, some of you may be knowing, is a well-known name in Northeast region, and he has also been given so many awards, even centrally, for his role as an innovator, rural innovator. So those in initial phases, he was also financed by NABARD. And then technology. Technology is one important thing. NABARD is for appropriate technology, for technology in the rural area, and access technology. Like nowadays, there's a lot of discussions about IoT, Internet of Things. So they have been, I mean, very active under this mission. And finally, one important role is institutional development. Institutional development, because I told you that these development, all the development institutions, all the four that I've discussed, they have one critical role, is that of development, that of coordination. So this institutional development, by institutional development, what is meant is that rural financial ecosystem that has so many players, and everybody knows that they are not in good health. So there is an urgent need that something is done to these institutions. And through its institutional development means, like for example, I can tell you, like primary agriculture credit societies, they are not in good shape. They require a lot of support. And those of you who may be aware about, like Badjanathan committee, I mean, these were all due to NABARD, that this kind of intervention could take place, this kind of financial support could be given. Financial is one, capacity building is another. Even through regular monitoring, through regular plans, development action plan, or many other institutional plans, the attempts are made to make these institutions vibrant and viable, so that they can play a role in the rural areas, in the rural economy, in rural financial system, and secure prosperity for the rural masses. So with this, I come to the end of this presentation. And I would just like to recap the whole thing that I discussed. That RBI, being the central bank of the country and being the central bank for a pretty long time, since 1935, it has been, RBI has been at the center stage. But as we became independent, our priorities changed. Our priorities were regrouped. Certain areas, they became very important. They became just too important that it was thought that let there be a specialized institution instead of overburdening RBI, and accordingly different institutions, different organizations branched off. IDBI, NHB, NABARD, from IDBI again SIDBI and Exim Bank. And today we discuss about 4 organizations: NABARD, SIDBI, Exim Bank and NHB. NHB is for housing finance. Same role Exim Bank is playing for export promotion, for international trade. Same role SIDBI is playing for MSME sector, and NABARD is playing for rural development and agriculture sector. So with this, I thank you all very much for the patience hearing that you have given to me, and let me see if some questions are there. I don't find any question there. So yeah, just some questions are there. I would just like to take, I mean, 1 or 2 minutes I can go. The question is, Mr. Yumnam Sandeep, he has asked that can NABARD issue license to open cooperative bank? Does NABARD provide long-term loan? If then, what is the maximum tenure? So first question I would like to address is that this license, as yesterday Mr. Mehdi must have, I don't know, he must have discussed about, because RBI has so many roles, and maybe later on also I will be discussing in my session on regulation of commercial bank. So there I will delve with the subject in detail. But still, just one thing, let me tell you that this licensing is basically a regulatory role. Regulation means RBI. So RBI has power to grant license under Section 22 of BR Act 1949. And the question, as I understand from you, can NABARD issue? Maybe you have something in mind. Maybe you have come across something, but someone has not taken any trouble to clarify to you. This is that yes, NABARD has a role. NABARD has a role in licensing. It does not issue. It has no power to issue, but it can recommend. It has to necessarily recommend if the cooperative bank by you have meant cooperative bank. By cooperative bank, I take it as rural cooperative, because their cooperatives are of 2 types. One is urban cooperative, one is rural cooperative. Urban cooperative, the authority is RBI. For rural cooperative, RBI has given some supervisory role to NABARD. So under that role, NABARD has to do all the things on behalf of RBI. But yes, final license will be issued only by RBI, because RBI has the power. But yes, now RBI has to. RBI does bank on the report of NABARD. So NABARD has to do all the spade work and recommend it to RBI whether it should be issued license, or license already issued, whether it should be withdrawn. So both the cases, that of course with the recommendation of NABARD only it can be done, but the final power rests with RBI. The second question is, does NABARD provide long-term loan? If, then what is its maximum tenure? Now, NABARD's, I said that NABARD is too vast a subject to be dealt in 15 minutes. I have just taken 15 minutes to discuss NABARD. NABARD has, under NABARD Act, so many financing powers, and one of the powers are different sections. One power is to give short-term finance to long-term finance. Long-term finance also, but this finance, when we talk about this is about financing to an institution, or what I talked about is refinance. So it is not a direct finance. Direct finance also they have power, but and they have been doing, but they have been doing as co-finance. So NABARD has got the power to make a long-term loan, but normally it avoids. Normally it does not give it to individuals. It prefers the refinance route, but yes, it has financed some of the individuals too under NABARD Act, and I think this answers your second part. Thank you very much. If I think now I have exceeded my time. Thank you very much for patiently listening, and I take your leave. Thank you very much. Thank you.